So that siren goes off for 2 minutes, and as you guys saw, wherever people are, if they're on buses, if they're in cars, if they're on bicycles, if they're in the middle of the street, if they're in school, if they're in their home, wherever people are, people stand up and people spend 2 minutes just focusing on and remembering the Shoah, and it's very, very powerful and only an Israel experience. Okay, guys, as Jeremy reminded us, we ended last time beginning to explore the city of Yerushalayim. And I had asked you guys to come on to the Jerusalem Lino and to share, what does Jerusalem mean to you? To share an idea, to post a stickum. And only Andrew and Jeremy responded to me. So we're going to quickly look at what it is that they had to say. Andrew, are you with us?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, do you want to quickly read your stickum?
Sure. I think Jerusalem means like hope and safety for the Jewish people, and it is hope for many other religions, not just Judaism.
Great. So Andrew saw some pictures here that we had of different religions being and different names for Jerusalem, and he watched the video about Jerusalem, which talked about the different religions, and he responded to that kind of holy city aspect of Jerusalem. Jeremy, do you want to read what you wrote?
I said that Jerusalem means so much to me. There's so many holy areas which are very meaningful. And while there are bad times here, there were also good times. Also, the architecture and aesthetics are also amazing.
Guys, can I ask you to mute yourselves? Great, thank you. Okay, so Jeremy, awesome. Also honed in on the holy aspect of Jerusalem, but also the architecture, something we're going to take a look at about Jerusalem this evening. Okay, thank you guys for looking or taking a quick pictorial tour of Jerusalem and thinking about Jerusalem. Okay, so why Jerusalem? I want us to start thinking about why Jerusalem was chosen as the capital of Israel. Does anyone know who picked Jerusalem to be the capital of Israel and built Jerusalem as the capital of Israel?
Was it King David?
It sure was, Jeremy. Awesome. It was absolutely King David. Okay. And we're going to think now, if we look at a map of Israel, right, we see that where is Jerusalem located relative to the map or to the country? Where is Jerusalem in the country?
The Middle East.
Okay, I'm taking out your word east, Andrew. Jerusalem is in the middle of the country. So it's pretty centrally located in the country. And there were important reasons why David chose Jerusalem to be the capital of Israel. But before we go there and we think about that, I want you guys to tell me, and I'm going to drop for you into the chat. I want you guys to tell me what you think are some important, now everybody should have in the chat, why is that not going in? Do not tell me. Okay, everybody should have in the chat now the today's meet. So I want you to come into the today's meet and tell me, I put for you that capital cities are often surrounded by walls and high places like mountains. But what do you think are some important parts or components of a capital city? Guys, you don't have to wait. You can sign into the today's meet and start posting. Central place, Jeremy. Okay, that's a key piece. Central place for a government to meet. cultural capitals are cultural centers. They can have famous buildings in them. Absolutely, Jesse. Has memorials sometimes. Okay, oftentimes we build memorials in capitals. Okay, these are all important things to keep in mind as we start this idea, this conversation of why David chose Jerusalem for his capital city. And I'm going to ask you guys to pay attention to this video, which is going to kind of answer that question of why Jerusalem.
Can you make it full screen?
Yes,
The thought
I will.
of a single monarchy was not
Thank you.
only an abstraction, it was objectionable.
The Israelites were unable to live in peace with each other, and they had no sense of being part of a nation, or for that matter, being the center of an empire.
David's vision was to forge a modern nation out of this chaos of tribal feuding. He knew he needed a special city from which to rule, one that was centrally located and easily defended. He selected the hilltop town of Jebus, later to be known as Jerusalem.
He decides to install himself in the hill town of Jerusalem, not a traditional Israelite town, a town that belongs to completely different people.
The Jebusites were a sect of the Canaanites, the people who populated Canaan for centuries. David decided to conquer them and take their city as his prize. He specifically chose Jerusalem because it was home to people who had no ties to any of the 12 tribes. This would make it easier for all of the Israelites to accept the new capital.
David uses Jerusalem in the way, for instance, the colonies used the District of Columbia as a neutral capital that didn't belong to any of the original 13 colonies.
David also believed the city was conquerable.
On the basis of archaeological evidence that we have available, Jerusalem was weakly fortified around 1000 BCE. What they had available were fortifications that had...
Okay, guys, so why Jerusalem? You can drop it in the chat to me or unmute yourself and tell me why Jerusalem.
So it's like because it's like easily defendable and
Okay.
like
Okay, one reason, Andrew. Let's give other people right, Jillian, absolutely. It had hills. So David could be up on top. Like Andrew said also, it was easily defendable. Why else Jerusalem? Can someone else share with us? Ah, very interesting idea, Jillian. The people there don't belong to any of the 12 tribes. So what is that all about? He doesn't give the capital to the tribe of Dan. He doesn't give the capital to the tribe of Issachar. He picks a neutral place. Why do you think David would do that?
so it's like easier to like
Andrew, let's give Jeremy a chance to answer a question. Go ahead, Jeremy.
He chooses the neutral part so that he won't have to fight anyone to get it. So he could just take it over, sort of, because nobody really had claimed it yet, and he didn't want to like spill any blood. So.
Okay, absolutely. Maybe you won't have to fight over that land to establish that place as your capital. Absolutely. And it kind of cuts down on the jealousy, right? Everyone can love Yerushalayim like all of us Jews do. All the Israelites, all Bnei Israel can love Yerushalayim without anybody feeling that somebody else's land became more important or more special. And Ryan, absolutely, like you said, it had the advantage, excellent, of being up on the hill. Also what Jillian had said, that it was up on the hill, so that it's easier to defend and can't be conquered or attacked quickly or easily. Okay, so we understand why David was attracted to Yerushalayim and why it was relatively easy for him to conquer Yerushalayim and establish his capital there. Okay, so we said what was unique about Yerushalayim's location. It's centrally located, and even though it's really, like we say, it's part of Binyamin, it's really outside of Binyamin, and nobody owned it, so nobody's going to fight about it. We've cut down on our jealousy. Okay, so what is, somebody said before, memorials posted on the Today's Meet, that capitals are known for their memorials. What is the most important Jewish place, structure, institution which is built in Yerushalayim?
The temple.
Absolutely, the temple, who was built by, okay, Jillian, you said the Western Wall, and we're going to see that the Western Wall is one of the remaining retaining walls of the temple after it was destroyed. So you're both right. Okay, who built the temple?
King David or King Solomon?
Okay, good guess with King David. He conquered Jerusalem, he built Jerusalem, but he was not given the privilege of building the temple. He was a warrior and a conqueror, and it was his son, King Solomon, who was given the privilege of building
I
the
did
temple.
say both. So.
You did say both, I know. I'm saying you got it right on the second try. Okay, guys, I'm going to give you, and I apologize, my internet was down today. So we almost canceled this class. I'm going to drop into the chat for you right now this link, which everyone is going to go to this Google document. Now you have the link, and I'm going to see, we're going to test out what we know about the temple. We're talking here about Solomon's temple. When did he build it? You guys, when you get in, you can start answering the questions. The Babylonians destroyed Solomon's temple in 586 BC. When and who built the second temple? And King Herod rebuilds and restores the temple. When? In 37 BCE, 100 CE, or after the Romans destroy it in 70 CE? So go ahead, guys. Okay, guys, 3 of you have responded. 4. Let's take another 30 seconds so everybody can respond. Okay, guys, if you haven't responded, we're going to go ahead and we're going to look at our responses. Okay, when did Solomon build Bayit Rishon? Those of you who said, well, we know it wasn't 1967 and 150,000 years ago seems a really long time ago. We don't think we were building then. So 960 BCE would be the correct, before the Common Era, would be the correct answer.
I thought it was I thought it was like the question said on the lines of the question said
when did Solomon build Bayit Rishon? Andrew, we're going to go with the simple answer. This was a factual thing, not one we have to think too much about, okay? The Babylonians destroyed Solomon's temple in 586 BCE. When and who built the second temple? This was a little bit trickier, but one again that you could reason out, and 50% of you got it, that in 516 before the Common Era, Ezra and Nehemiah came back with the Jews from Persia, and they built the second temple. King Herod rebuilds and restores the temple in 75% of you thought it was after the Romans destroyed the temple in 70 of the Common Era. As we say over here, alavai, if only that was so. But unfortunately, after the Romans destroyed the second temple in 70 of the Common Era, the temple has never been rebuilt. King Herod restores and rebuilds the temple in 37 before the Common Era. And now we're going to take a look at the temple and and specifically at Herod's reconstruction of the temple. Because what we think of when you come to Jerusalem or you go online and you see a model of the temple, or we come to Jerusalem and we see what Jillian said right away when she heard the word temple, which is the Kotel or the Western Wall, we're talking about the construction or the reconstruction that Herod did. And what Herod did was really a wonder of the ancient world. And we're going to see in a minute some of the problems that Herod faced in building the temple and some of the solutions that he found. So I want you to pay attention as we watch this little clip to the difficulties that Herod faced in building and the solutions that he found. Okay, guys. I don't know. When I saw that, it's technical, it's about architecture, it's about construction, it's about building. It's not my thing, but there were some facts there that blew me away. What were some of the things that Herod faced, difficulties he faced in building, solutions he found, and anything that you guys found very surprising or shocking in that little clip that we watched?
Basically he had to like move. He had to alter the mountain. He had to like basically make the mountain like the mountain was they said it was like the mountain was pointed, so they had to like move it out so it was flat, and then below like the flat surface they had like 4 layers of arches 20 by 20 and that's something pretty impressive. And
Okay, so the actual way that they constructed creating the mountain and all those layers of arches was pretty impressive. And like Jillian said, was what along the lines of what you said, Andrew, making the mountain bigger. And what Ryan said, the fact that the Temple Plaza was the largest built space in the ancient world at that time was pretty impressive. You're talking the time 37 before the Common Era. Who are the people ruling the world then?
like
Who's the great power in the world?
Greece.
Oh, has-beens. Who's the great power?
China?
Oh, not yet. Not yet.
Japan.
No.
Like-
No. We've gotten way cold. It was the Greeks, and after the Greeks came the
Roman.
Romans. It is the Romans, and they are pretty famous for their construction and their building. And the fact that it was here in Jerusalem, in little old Jerusalem, that the Temple Plaza was the largest square, the largest built place in the ancient world, is pretty impressive. Anything else that stuck out to you?
I think it's crazy that they built they got all the building materials. They made that before they even started building on the site. And yeah.
Do you remember, Jeremy, how many tons of stone the clip said that?
No, it was a specific number that I don't remember.
It was a crazy number. It was, think about this, in a time when there were no trucks and there were no cranes, there were slaves, 1 million tons of stones.
And it took 8 years.
It took 8 years to do it. That's pretty amazing. So this was pretty incredible building that was going on in a pretty amazing place in the ancient world. And Herod was responsible for all of that building. And Jillian, like you said, he built those retaining walls. And one of them is the Kotel that we have until this day. So when we go today, when you guys hopefully will come and visit me here in Israel, and you come to Jerusalem and you see the Kotel, this is what you are seeing, which is one of the surviving retaining walls of the Temple Plaza. Okay, we talked about what was surprising. Okay, does the Temple Plaza here remind you of anything? And the Temple Mount with the famous picture of the Kippat Zahav, or the Golden Dome Mosque on top?
It all just looks very it all just looks like it's just made out of one big chunk of stone.
Okay.
In my opinion, the Temple Mount kind of looks like Congress, the Congress building.
Oh, interesting, Jeremy. That's very interesting. You're absolutely, the Golden Dome and Al-Aqsa Mosque, the Silver Dome also, that kind of grand Capitol building kind of look. And I guess also all this building, again, we come back to the Romans, who were famous and known for their building. And it's very like kind of grand royal building that we're seeing, which is what the Capitol building was modeled on. Awesome. I like that, Jeremy. Okay, so I want to give you guys just a quick overview of the history of what has happened on the Temple Mount. Does someone want to read this for me? Maybe Ethan, Ryan, do one of you want to or Jesse, do one of you want to unmute and read this for me?
I can.
Okay, great. Go ahead.
Just the first one?
Yeah, start with the first one, Ethan.
The timeline of Temple Mount. 70, temple destroyed by Romans.
Okay, so wait, stop. So 1 second. Does everyone know what happens when the temple is destroyed by the Romans? What happens to the Jewish people?
They have to leave Israel.
They have to leave. Most of them are sent out as slaves, were taken as slaves by the Romans. City destroyed, Jewish communities destroyed. Okay, go ahead, Ethan. 637.
Just a note before you go on, Ethan. So we're talking about 70 of the Common Era. A lot of people here say AD, but that means Year of Our Lord. So we don't call it that. Archaeologists and scientists, and we call it CE, the Common 70 CE.
Common Era.
Got it.
637 CE. The Muslim Caliph Umar built mosque on Temple Mount.
Awesome reading there. Those were not easy words. Okay, so now we see them at Temple Mount taken over. Now it's important structure is no longer the temple, it is a mosque, and that's the silver domed Al-Aqsa Mosque. Ethan, 691.
691 CE. Caliph Abu Malik builds the Dome of the Rock.
Okay.
705 CE. Al-Walid ibn Abdul Malik builds Al-Aqsa
Mosque. Okay, or expands Al-Aqsa Mosque. Okay. 1099.
1099. Crusaders conquered Jerusalem and turned the Dome of Rock into church and the Al-Aqsa Mosque into palace.
Okay, so now the Crusaders, who are Christian knights, come into Jerusalem. They conquer the capital, and suddenly we have a church in place of, and the mosques are ruined. 1187.
1187. Saladin drives Crusaders out of Jerusalem and restore holy places as Muslim.
Okay, and 1967, what happens? Ethan, go ahead. 1967, what happens?
Where is that?
Last one.
Is it cut off?
Are you
At
not?
the very bottom.
Oh, are you not? Whoops. Are you,
No, I can see it.
sorry.
Well, Ethan, actually, you know what happened in 1967 just from class. Do you remember?
Something conquered the Temple Mount.
Israel conquered the Temple Mount, right? In the 6-day war that we learned about, right? Har Habayit biyadenu, right? The very famous quote, when the paratroopers come to the Temple Mount, they enter Jerusalem in 1967, and for the first time since when is the Temple Mount in Jewish hands? Look up at the screen.
70 CE.
For the first time since 70 CE. So what do we see about this particular place of real estate that had the most wonderful architecture of the ancient world from 70 CE when that was destroyed? What do we see going on there?
Well, we see that it's all ruined, and we see how the new domes have been built and stuff.
Okay, but what do we see? We see the Jews are ousted, in come Muslims. Muslims are ousted, in come Christian Crusaders. Christian Crusaders are ousted, in come Muslims. We see that it's a place that everybody's fighting over, and that from 70 CE until 1967, when the Jews returned to the Temple Mount, only the people who were in charge, who conquered or controlled Jerusalem, were allowed to use Jerusalem as their holy place. The other religions, one religion was in, the other religions would be out. Only since 1967 have all three religions, or major religions that have their holy places in Jerusalem, had access, been able to go to and pray in their holy places. But what we're going to see in a minute is things don't always go smoothly. And we have some situations and some dilemmas to think about. So I'm going to ask you guys to go to this checklist that I'm going to drop in for you in the chat. And I'm going to ask you to think about, now we know Har Habayit is back in Jewish hands, so how would we arrange, or how should we arrange prayer in the Temple Mount? Tear down Muslim buildings, keep mosques and build a synagogue, forbid Jews from ascending the Temple Mount, arrange separate prayer times for Muslims and Jews, allow Jews to visit but not pray, or other. Take a minute, guys, and vote. Guys, 30 seconds to vote, so make a commitment.
I voted, but for some reason it's
I
not
don't,
for you.
Me too.
I don't know why it is not coming up.
Maybe refresh.
Yeah, I did it. I voted.
Maybe just refresh it.
No, I did. It's not coming up. Okay, it could be remnants of my internet. Okay, guys, so tell me vocally. Unmute yourselves and tell me how you would vote. Jeremy,
I
what
said
you...
other because I
Okay,
didn't
give me
really
your
agree.
other. Give me your other. What's your other?
So basically, I sort of agree with the second answer. So we keep the mosques and we keep the whole Western Wall as our holy place, and then the Christians can use their church or whatever. So everybody's just free to come in as they want, and everyone gets to pray at their holy place. And basically,
Okay.
there's no like separation or anything. It would be like united, but united but different.
Okay, so everyone gets to pray up on the Temple Mount with Jeremy, which is more or less the second answer. Andrew, quickly, what's your
Right.
vote?
I would do the one above, other, like allow Jews to visit but not pray. I do like you can see it. I mean, like it's not part of the Jewish religion; it's part of other religions, right? So like, right? It's like
The
it's part
Temple
of.
Well, it
Mount.
was
The
the
Temple
Holy
Mount
Temple
is
there.
the holiest place for Jews in the world. It's
But
the
then they
Temple
made
Mount. There is
separate
no
pieces.
holier place than the Temple Mount for Jews.
Okay, then Jews can pray all they want. Like then I don't want to do the answer. I'll do like anyone can pray there. Or anyone can like do whatever they want.
Anyone can pray there. Ben, what do you think?
I said arrange separate times for Muslims and Jews to pray, because like everyone can pray there if like everyone wants to, but like separate times. Like I kind of have a connection. Like I watched the show and it's in like a small town, and there's only one like religious building. So there's like part of the time it's like a church and part of the time it's a temple.
Okay.
Like that.
Great. Okay, so the idea of giving everybody access and everybody being able to pray there, and maybe it wouldn't work everybody being there at one time, and we might have to do it separately. Okay. I want us to take a look at what happens indeed today on the Temple Mount. Okay, so we're going to look quickly at this little video, which is an actual video of when Jews went up to visit the Temple Mount.
In Jerusalem's Old City, Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Dome of the Rock sit squarely on the site that Jews call the Temple Mount and Muslims the Noble Sanctuary. It may be the most contested religious site in the world. Jews widely believe that the first and second temples once stood here. Muslims believe this is a location from where Muhammad ascended to heaven. The 37 acres are controlled by the Islamic Waqf. Prayer by non-Muslims is strictly forbidden.
نحن نرحب بزيارة أي شخص غير مسلم كزيارة وليس كحق وليس كعبادة أن يمارس عبادة.
Many Jews pray at a remnant of its outer western wall, but refuse to enter based on religious teachings.
It's like almost an act of blasphemy to do it. There are other opinions that are much more lenient, but I personally wouldn't go up there.
For years, a fringe of far-right-wing Israelis have entered, challenging restrictions to Jewish prayer. Now, more mainstream Jews are visiting. This has some groups worried that any provocation could escalate into a conflict. One such event happened Wednesday. when 3 Muslims were arrested after throwing stones at Jews they thought to be praying at the site. Visitors of all religions are generally welcome, but religious Jews must be escorted by Israeli police and a Waqf guard who ensure that they do not pray or demonstrate any religious activity. Russian immigrant Max Friedzen visits every morning that he's allowed in. He learned to pray silently without moving his lips in Leningrad in the 1980s.
To say I'm praying, it's a little bit unload here. I'm thinking about my God.
Rabbi Chaim Richman hopes a third temple will eventually be built on the mount, but for now, wishes Jews would have more access to the site.
Really, don't confuse the issue. I'm not talking about building a temple. I would like to be able to go without the Muslim guard watching the movement of my lips, and I would like to be able to freely worship God by praying.
Okay, guys, so what did we learn about what the reality of the situation is on the Temple Mount? Who is allowed to pray on the Temple Mount and who isn't allowed to pray on the Temple Mount? Go ahead, Ben.
Muslims are allowed to pray and like no one else is, which seems a little like, it kind of seems like comedic. It's like ridiculous. Like you're allowed to come here and visit, but we're gonna have like armed guards watching your lips to make sure you don't like say something we don't want you to. It seems a little like excessive.
It seems a little excessive. It seems a little ironic, comedic, all those things. What we need to know is there's no simple answer here. This is when we say conflict on the Temple Mount is a place that is very, very holy to Jews, and it is very holy to Muslims as well. And there has never been a time when anyone else has been in control of the Temple Mount that anyone got to pray there, meaning if Muslims were in control, only Muslims prayed there. If Christians were in control, only Christians prayed there. When the Jewish people, when Israel has been in control of the Temple Mount, they have allowed the Muslim religious body, the Waqf, to remain in control. And ironically, like Ben said, it's comedic. Jews are not allowed to pray on the Temple Mount. And all we can do is pray that one day there'll be a more peaceful time and more people will be able to pray on the Temple Mount. But
I think everything seems really tense and for no reason. Why? What's so bad? Maybe on the Temple Mount you can have an area close to the mosque and stuff for the Muslims to pray and have the Jews maybe in a separate area. Or why does it really matter if I'm praying my Jewish stuff next to a Muslim who might be doing his Muslim stuff? I really don't see why it matters. We're all human beings. We all believe in something. And if it's both a holy place for us, why does it matter which religion you're praying as long as you know what you're doing? And
Jeremy, unfortunately you or Ben or I, unfortunately, we don't write the policy. And again, because we live in a place, because Israel is a country that faces a lot of enemies and there's a lot of political complications and a lot of considerations, you hit the nail, Jeremy. It's a very, very tense place. It's a very, very serious conflict. And sometimes ridiculous things happen. All the answers that you guys had to how we should have prayer on the Temple Mount and all your comments here are so valid and real and true and important. But unfortunately, none of that matters when it comes to the conflict and the politics of the Temple Mount. And it's...
especially because like it's not in like a Muslim country. It's in the middle of Israel, which is like...
You're right.
And obviously Jewish.
You're right.
So
but I'm going to throw something else out, guys. I'm stopping you because I want to get through a lot. We have another conflict to look at. And I don't know that we're going to have time to do it today, but if we don't have time to do it today, we will start first thing, our last class, with our Kahoot on Yerushalayim. But I want to definitely get to the other major conflict that revolves around this area of the temple in Jerusalem. But I want to point out that as recently as only a couple of months ago, the UN resolution that was passed, 2334, said that this whole area of Jerusalem, is not even Jewish, that the Jews don't have any ties or any claims to this whole area. So sometimes very absurd and very comic things happen, and it's one of the serious battles that Israel is fighting. But another issue that comes up all the time about the Kotel is non-Orthodox, or specifically women's prayer at the Kotel. Because when you come to the Kotel, you will see that the Kotel, the prayer area of the Kotel, has a mechitza, or a divider down the middle, and the men are on one side and the women are on the other. And there is no such thing as, at the Kotel itself, non-Orthodox prayer. And a group of women have, for almost 30 years, been fighting for the right to pray the way they want to daven or pray at the Kotel. And I want to give us a few minutes just to take a look at what that's all about, and to realize that, like the conflict on the Temple Mount, it's not such a simple issue, because as much as there are non-Orthodox Jews and women who want to have the right to pray the way they want to at the temple, the majority of people who are at the Kotel and who pray at the Kotel on a regular basis want to have prayer in an Orthodox style, in the way they want the prayer. And again, like the Temple Mount, it's a very complicated conflict. So I want to give us a minute to look at that conflict.
I'm Anat Hoffman. I'm the chairperson of Women of the Wall, and I want to tell you about our mission statement. It seems trivial, almost small, but when I look at Miss Rosa Parks and her mission, it seems small too. All she wanted is to sit in the front of the bus because she was tired. Well, what we want to do at the Kotel, at the wall, are four activities that, for your convenience, all start with the letter T. One is to wear our talit. This is the Women of the Wall prayer shawl. Here it is. The second is to put on phylacteries, tefillin. The third is to pray out loud, tefillah. And the fourth is Torah, to read from the Torah scroll. We want to do all these four activities at the women's section of the Western Wall.
Women of the Wall's mission is for both gender equality.
Okay, so that gives you an idea of the group of women called Women of the Wall, who are fighting and have waged a campaign in the courts in Israel and on the ground, as we're going to see. I want to give you a couple of minutes to look at a group of the Women of the Wall coming to pray at the Kotel and the challenges
This morning,
they face.
Rosh Chodesh Shvat, the beginning of 2014, it's very unusual. We are 200 women, and we are trying to get the Torah scroll to come with us to the wall area so we could read it. Jews do read Torah on Rosh Chodesh, on New Month, and we are Jews, and we want to read. Avigail is not allowed to bring the Torah in. A policewoman is telling her that there is a regulation that no one is allowed to bring a Torah scroll from the outside, because there are 100 Torah scrolls for public use in the men's section. Well, we've done that. We actually asked to use the one in the men's section, one of the 100 Torah scrolls there, and we were told that we're not part of the public that's allowed to use the Torah scroll. We're women.
Okay, so that are some of the challenges that the Women of the Wall have faced. And I want to share with you, just so you see, this is not a black and white issue. Like the conflict on the Temple Mount, this is a complicated issue that Israel has to deal with.
I think the fact that they want to interrupt and interfere and sing loud and make a point and not perhaps be observant in everything else makes a joke of it all.
I feel very strongly that there is a place for davening, and the Kotel is not a place to daven unitalitim ve'im kippot. It's extremely disturbing to me, and I would rather they have a place of their own, they do their own thing and not mingle with the people that feel uncomfortable around them.
בפרלמנט הבריטי אי אפשר להיכנס לא עם סנדלים ולא עם מכנסיים קצרות. ופה בכותל המערבי הן שוברות, מנפצות את כל הנורמות שהיו פה אלפי שנים ומחללות את קדושת המקום.
We have a tradition of how we're supposed to behave at the Kotel, and they want to do something different.
Okay, guys. So I want you to see that it's not so simple, that many women come to the Kotel and they're dissatisfied with the active role or the participation that they can have in that place. And many men and women who pray in non-Orthodox environments come to the Kotel, and they're dissatisfied because they cannot have a meaningful prayer service like they do in their home synagogue. But it's not such a simple thing. The difference between the tefillah or the prayer at the Kotel and the Temple Mount is that when we talk about the prayer at the Kotel, we're talking about all Jewish people who are arguing amongst themselves. And since Israel is a Jewish country, Israel has a responsibility to resolve this issue and find a meaningful outcome or meaningful result that helps everyone get most of what they want. And that's why this battle is being fought in the courts. And God willing, hopefully, over the next short time, we will see a resolution to the non-Orthodox and women's prayer at the Western Wall versus Orthodox at the Western Wall brought by the Israeli government. Okay, guys, couple of things, and I can't even believe I'm saying this to you. In 2 weeks is our last class. And I started the evening talking with Ethan and Jeremy, who were on with me a little bit early, telling them that what I'd love to do for the last class, we're going to start with a Kahoot about Yerushalayim, and I'm going to give you a little bit about Israel as the startup nation. But then I would like you guys, and I'm going to send you an email tomorrow to remind you about this. I would like you guys to send me some topics. It could be anything that we've covered in the course of the year on the Shoah, anything that you'd like to know more about the Shoah or more about Israel that we can kind of cover on our last class together.
We have to? It's like optional.
It's optional. I'll have material to do with you guys, but it's optional. But I can only do it if you send it to me beforehand so I know what you guys are interested in.
If you have any requests, any special requests.
Correct. Any questions? We do not have class next Monday. It is Yom HaAtzmaut, Israel Independence Day, and no, there will not be class that night.
I have another question.
Yes, Jeremy.
Does the person who wins, who has the amount of points, do they get a prize or anything?
You guys will get chocolate again at the end of the year, just like you did halfway through the year. Yes, you will.
And it will be announced at promotion.
Correct. Okay, guys? Good night. I will see you in 2 weeks.
I will see you.
Bye.
Good night,
Bye, everyone.
guys.
See you on
Bye-bye.
Wednesday. Wednesday's really important, guys. We have to finish.